Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to another round of the AFVRC Championship, where we are now in the final sprint of the season. Well, as we say, the final sprint, 3 more sprint rounds to go. We are here at Knockhill tonight, a staple of British motor racing, one of the most iconic British circuits due to its nature of undulating corners, and very much you need to smack yourself off curbs. But my name is Max Ring, and joining me alongside me in the commentary box is Joseph Black. How are you, Joseph, on this Wednesday evening?
Very good. Looking forward to seeing racing around Knockhill because it's something that unfortunately is, I think, it's a track that's going out of fashion, but it's still the peak of Scottish motor racing. So, well, we'll have a look to see what the AFVRC can do tonight.
Yes, we certainly shall indeed. But let's quickly run you through the championship standings coming out of last week. We got Jack Goring, who still leads the way in the Pro Championship from Ben Cullen in second, and Will Fawkes has made his way into that top 3. Chris Pooley is in 4th place, followed by Chris Boland, Pete Plustow, Tom Stephens, Lee Barron, and Darville rounding out that top 10. Then we have David Wrench in 11th, who's dropped far from grace, as he, of course, was second only a few rounds ago. It's Jack Trunwitt, Forrest King, Andrews, Berris, Cross, Chambers, Crop, and Blackwell rounding out the top 20. And then the remainder of the field, it's Murphy, Slater, Etok, and Finch who round out the pro standings. Now, looking into the AM category, it's Ben Weston, who, of course, was able to take the championship lead last time out and has crucially built up quite a healthy buffer over Mark Gladwell just behind him. It's Scott Eastwood, who led into last week's round and then unfortunately was not here, so he fell to 3rd. It's Craig the Jew, Glimbury, Josh Lindsay, Vernon Higgs, Scott Warmington, and Worley, who round out the top 10 in that category. And then for the remainder of the AM field, it's Gray, Bunton, Neil Jack, Robert Cross, who is making his first appearance here this evening, fresh off a round of 16 loss in the Players' Championship to Justin Hood and Tim Hastings, who rounds out the AM Championship. But qualifying is well and truly underway, and as we can see here, Joseph, there is a dry line, but it has been raining up here in Scotland.
I could have made a cricket joke about Tom Bunton's name as well, but I don't think that would have gone down as well as the Rob Cross comparison has. But as you say, it is looking a little bit misty over the circuit here today, better than the majority of the weather we've had today in the UK. So I think the drivers will take it as they head their way through. But you can see there's a little bit of shine offline. But of course, all of the drivers taking to the line, apart from, who's that in the foreground?
That's Rob
taking out Darren Berris. That is a big, big moment.
That is Rob Cross, who here on his first visit in the championship has had a huge moment only a few minutes into qualifying, crashing out just like he did in that Players' Championship that I just previously mentioned. But here we see Matthew Forrest now making his way up to the line. Of course, a very short lap here at Knockhill, very snappy indeed. You're instantly back onto another hot lap as soon as you get pretty much around the first couple of corners. This final corner, which we see Chris Pooley try and take a wide line to get a nice entry to a bit of a slide as he gets onto that wet part of the circuit. Stephens, of course, is now at the top of the times. This track got to constantly evolve and get drier as this session progresses here, Joseph, and it's going to be difficult for these drivers at first to keep it on the island just due to the nature of how you have to drive this circuit. You've really got to lean onto those curbs, especially up into this next chicane where it can be very, very wet offline.
And there's not much that you can really do in terms of extracting the pace out of the lap because it's so short. Of course, all the drivers under a minute at the moment, or aiming for under a minute. So the start at the moment is Chris Pooley with a 56.751. So yes, in fact, everybody under a minute, some drivers even under 50 seconds. So there is not much time to extract out of the circuit. So you really have to throw your way through it. Fastest lap from Matt Chambers at the top of the field, 48.157 for him. He goes ahead of Pete Plastow by quite a significant distance of about 0.03 of a second, which I think will be important tonight. Chris Pooley just outside of the 48 to 49.004. He will be in 9th place, just outside of the 48.
Yeah, of course, traffic's going to be a big issue around this circuit as well, as that was, I believe, Scott Darville just behind a few of the cars in front of him. As to the inside, that will be Jack Goring on Craig Ledoux. Ben Cullen we're now on board with. Darville for slide, and Ledoux trying to check up out of the way. He goes into the side of Ben Cullen, and that's going to be the 909 driver's lap over and done with. So for Ben Cullen, he's going to have to back off and go again. But with so many drivers, 23 to be exact, on this short circuit at the same time, it's going to be extremely difficult to find some clear air. Pete Plasto is now at the top of the order, and that could also be the factor here as well, Joseph. Not only the track drying up, but also just getting some room onto the circuit. Sorry, it's Will Fuchs, not Scott Darville, who was involved in that moment with Craig Ledoux. And it's going to be, that could be one of the defining factors, is getting that clean space, that area to push on into, because with traffic, you're going to be costing yourself at least a few tenths of a second.
You really are, and at the moment you can see Will Folks all over the back and losing time, you would imagine, on the car in front. Can't quite see who that would be, but there's a couple of them, in fact, that are just ahead of Folks, which is slowing him down a little bit, and he's making the move on Goring here to try and make his way further up the order and, well, try to give himself a little bit more clear air to do so. He's going to be in the slipstream of the car ahead of the two of them, so I think this lap as well is going to have to be a dud for himself. He knows that he's a little bit quicker than those two cars he was stuck behind. He's made his way through now, but he's run wide. That might allow them to get back through. There's a little bit of racing here in qualifying.
It certainly is. It looks like Schumacher and Alonso back in Magny-Cours all those years ago at that French facility. And for Jonathan Murphy here, he's got Jack Goring now all over the back of him, who's had a huge wobble out of the Brabham chicane and heading up into Clark Curve. Murphy is just going to have the upper hand onto Goring. Of course, he doesn't have to get out of the way. He's on a fast lap himself, so he's just going to be pushing on, doing what he can, as Goring now looks to the inside into that final corner. Stevens now goes to the top of the pecking order. For Will Fulks, he's got someone just in front of him again. Now, that's a huge slide once again for Cullen, getting very trigger happy with that throttle and seeming to have some big moments indeed. Did spin a little while ago as well, that we saw in the background while everything was kicking off with the likes of Goring and Will Fulks. As now he tries to look to the outside of Jonathan Murphy, who just doesn't seem to have the confidence or pace after a few weeks out here, of course, Joseph, of everybody else, especially in tricky conditions like this. As I think that was Rob Cross off again.
Yeah, it looks like it is. He's really struggling at the moment in his debut appearance in this race and in this, of course, qualifying session. Because it is a different session to the race that we'll have coming very soon indeed. Dan Cross at the moment, I don't think there's any relation between the two, but he's in third, doing a pretty good start at the moment, 47.910 for the 263, and he's going to be hoping to jump up to the front row of the field. Jack Goring is going to join him on the second row. He's going to get to 47.9, which sees him within 0.07 of a second off the back of the 263 at the moment. Dan Cross just trying to find some space, but you can see still some wet patches, so it's really just that there's no space on the road. And there we go, there's a demonstration of it for you. Just in the background, a spin off of the road. Ethan Lee having a moment and slowing Dan Cross down, which means I think the 263 had to abort that lap around the final corner.
Yeah, I think he did indeed. Of course, it's a big moment in the championship, a big evening in the championship, as David Wrench just has to navigate a car going off the road. I believe that is the number 80 machine of Mark Gladwell that was off the road there. But Wrench now coming up into that final corner. Very tricky to get right. It's a very late apex. It dares you to go a little bit earlier on the turning, but it's very steep as well, so difficult to get the momentum and the power up through the corner as you're climbing up the hill down the main straight. It's going to be a 48.5. No improvement there from the number 32. Of course, Wrench, as I mentioned, was second place in the standings, has now dropped down to 11th. Chambers just keeping offline, but goes onto the wet patch. That's going to be another issue, is that if you abort your lap here, Joseph, it's the fact of you're trying to move out the way of other people, but you're really affecting your tyre temperature because you're going onto the wet patches. And that also, in a sense as well, could mean that you have some clumsy mistakes as you're trying to get out the way and you just skate straight on at a corner.
You have to be really selfish, I think, is the main thing as well, folks. 47.4, unbelievable lap time to take him to the top. There are cars all over the road at the moment. It's less of a fight for pace, more of a fight for space right now as we head through this qualifying session. Still 11 minutes to go, so there's opportunities for them to set more times, but of course these lap times at the moment aren't necessarily the most representative ones, because later on in the session they're going to be having a look at well, the drier lines beginning to form. I think the track will be completely bone dry by that time, because it doesn't appear as though there's going to be much in the way of actual rain going on right now, but there is just cars absolutely everywhere where everyone is going to be trying to avoid. And well, Matt Chambers has not been able to set a lap time to push him up the field for a couple of laps. Matt Forrest has, and Jack Goring has just jumped up to the front row.
Jack Goring and Will Fulks, of course, two looking for the title. Ben Cullen as well, also in second place. He is certainly someone to look out for as well, with only these 3 rounds to go. Of course, all sprint evenings as well, if you're not used to the format. That's someone spinning straight off there at Clark Curve. Not sure who that was spinning off the road, but of course, 3 sprint rounds to go. This is crunch time in the championship. And oh, it started raining here, Joseph. That's going to be session over. Will Fulks will take pole, surely, unless someone can put out a miracle in the next few seconds, because the rain has started pouring. The track will get worse, and it'll be Glenn Burry as well. We've not spoke about the AM category too much, and he at the moment is at the top of that standings. There's someone off in the background. Didn't see exactly who that was at the chicane. And for Mark Gladwell here, he needs a stonking final corner if he wants any chance of fighting his way back up through the Anfield, as Craig Ledoux goes to second. Glenn Burry will start in 10th place overall in the Anfield. A great qualifying once again from the pole sitter at Am. And for Mark Gladwell, coming up to the line, can he snatch it away here from Burry as he makes his way to the line? Is it enough? No, it is not enough, and it's 3rd place for Mark Gladwell. And he will start behind, I believe, Matthew Forrest. But the rain has started falling, and I think that is pretty much going to be session over and done with, unless someone can find a miracle in the dying few moments.
Sorry, everybody. I said it was going to get better. I said that the track was going to get better, but unfortunately, as you say, the rain is out, and well, it's proven me to look very silly right now. But yeah, the rain is certainly going to be out over Scotland at the moment, and that means that that will be, as you say, the end of the qualifying session, and Craig Ledoux demonstrating that his pace is going to be 4 seconds slower, and it's only going to get worse as they head on. So I think it's just going to be all down to the drivers now to see if they can get out of the session. They've got 8 minutes to kill, and then they will have race day soon to get underway, and hopefully slightly better conditions.
Yep, hopefully so. It is. The forecast does seem to be very overcast, very gloomy all evening long, with some sprinkles of rain, so we could have some mixed conditions. You can see the weather conditions. It is overcast. There's 22 degrees track temperature, so very cold on the track front, and then 19 degrees overall in the, of course, weather with, of course, the weather conditions. There is some light rain just pouring down onto the circuit, and it's going to be enough to just give that just sheet greasy layer above the tarmac, and it's going to be very, very difficult for these drivers to get any improvement. Indeed, they won't get any improvement, but it's good track time for some as well, because of course if it does start raining in the races here, Joseph, you can come out on a set of the wets. You've got a few minutes to just try something as how's Ethan Lee going off the road after some contact with Robert Cross, as he's then going off the road himself. Lee, of course, teleports back to the pit lane to try that pit exit all over again. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these drivers are going onto the wets, use the track time, learn the track in these conditions, and if it does happen in the race, you've got that knowledge beforehand.
Yeah, I think it's, as you say, it's all about learning that track time. Adrian Warmington has spun it around, though, so that track time is, well, showing that you can't quite park there, sir, for Warmington, and he's going to try to get himself going once again and out of the way of all of the traffic, which seems to be depleting. Lots of drivers opting to stay in the pit lane instead of going out there on the road and having a go at setting another time, or just having a go at working themselves out. Adrian Warmington, 28.271 apparently. That is not going to be true at all for the number 18, who finds himself in 8th place in class, down the bottom of the order. And in fact, the slowest lap time so far. And I don't think he was out with... He wasn't particularly out in a timely manner, so I think he's lost out in this qualifying session, because that means he's going to start from the back with no real experience, because of course he's sat in the pit lane for too long, but also at the same time he's going to be starting from the back, so he's going to be just having to fight his way up. He's given himself an uphill battle.
He certainly has, and around a circuit like this, there's not many overtaking opportunities that you can really utilise in this type of machine, because of course you have got into McIntyre's and Clark Curve, but and the final corner as well. So there's 3 opportunities in a sense, but you need to work for those because it's such a short lap. You've got to make the car in front make that mistake, and the real mistake is going to come through that chicane into Clark, because of course you've got to hit it at such a precise angle. Too much curb, you're seeing yourself on 2 wheels going straight off into the gravel. Too little, you then see yourself start to have some moments, as of course your car is pretty much in the air at that moment, and it really unsettles it as you try to get onto the power. So it's going to be difficult for these drivers, especially if they become under pressure going for moves, or if they're trying to put the pressure onto somebody else, they can make those mistakes. And even into this first corner here, it's a very blind apex here with Chris Boland we're now looking at. It's very, very blind. And it's just so difficult to get right, especially if you're looking into your mirrors into the braking zone. It's a circuit that is very much driver focused, and it's going to be very, very difficult to even find an opportunity to have a lunge to the inside.
Yeah, it really is, especially if the track conditions stay the same as they are. Ben Weston, you don't want to drive there. That's off of the road. That's straight into the gravel track, and straight into the gravel trap, and straight into the pit lane as well. So that's unfortunate for the man in 4th place in the amateur standings as well. And you can see now the differences in the standings. Of course, Will Fulks at the top of the order in the pros. Jack Goring will be alongside him on the front row of the field. And you have to wait till down to 10th place to see where one amateur driver is, and that will be Glyn Berry, but none of the others until 14th place Craig Ledoux, and then another gap down to 17th place. So this is certainly a track that favours experience more than anything else, because of course the pro drivers are the ones with more experience on iRacing, and well, they're making the most of it now.
Yeah, they certainly are indeed. Of course, this car in the dry is very, very difficult to drive. It's got no front end rotation. Matt Chambers having a slide to maybe prove me wrong a little bit there, but was on the puddle. But it's very difficult with the front end. It doesn't want to grip. It doesn't want to turn. So in the wet weather conditions, it's even worse because, of course, you remove that layer of rotation and it just aquaplanes even more. You just go straight over the water, any puddle, and you're just going straight on. You can't get that grip you need, as you can see as well. The puddles will always come to the bottom of the hill as well. So heading through turn 1 is going to be an absolute death trap if we get these conditions in the race, because that puddle will just be a fixed sheet right at the bottom of that hill. You lose traction, you aquaplane there, you're going straight into a spin or straight on. And it's going to be oh so difficult. And even into this final corner, it's just going to be at that very inside apex. You're going to have to take a really wide line, very much far away from the apex, so make sure you even get the car into the corner. So the rain that's around this circuit more than others we've seen on the calendar certainly adds even more of a challenge for these drivers to deal with, because of how hilly it is. It's going to be just completely now all about driver skill and how well you can deal with the aquaplaning.
Yeah, it's, well, I think it's going to be a great experience for the drivers out there. It's one of those things that you kind of have to face in a race session to learn in terms of all of the lines and everything like that. It's one of those things you can practice as much as you like, but it's never ever going to be the same as if you're in a race session and you get to this point off of the road in the background, another driver who just takes the curbing, and the curbs are really, really treacherous here. You kind of have to use them, but it's a necessary evil, and Darren Berris really struggling with them. He's gone off of the road, but because of the congestion on the track, he's going to take a while to get going, and in fact, he probably should have gotten going there, but instead, he opts to go back into the pit lane, probably quite sensibly, and just jumps in at the end of this session. I think he will potentially get back out for 1 or 2 more laps of practice in this session, which is what it's become now. It has become a practice session more than qualifying, because nobody has been able to set a competitive lap time for about 7 or 8 minutes now. So they will just be looking to get that practice out there just in case the weather is going to be wet. And well, we will see how they will stack up. Well, we know how they're going to stack up at the start, but we will see how much this practice will pay off. Big slide in the background. I think that was Chris Brawley there. As well, they will just come to the last minute and 20 seconds in this qualifying session. So the majority of them on their final lap.
Yeah, a majority of them are. And it's all now just for these drivers to dial in, understand what they need to do for the race, because of course it may still be a little bit damp heading into those race conditions. You can see here on board of Jack Goring how much it is pouring down onto the circuit, just how much rain is being chucked onto the road. And now as we head down into this first corner, you can see what I mean about that blind apex. You don't see the exit curb until you're already into the corner, and it's so difficult to position yourself. You can see Goring really struggling with the aquaplaning as the puddles are just everywhere around this circuit, and this is going to be the Tetris part. It's going to be where you're just always on the curbs through those chicanes where the puddles build up, and you can see him being dragged by one of the puddles on the outside over to the grass. He's having to really wrestle this Porsche Cup car just to keep it on the road, on the black stuff. And luckily for Jack Goring, he's not seen himself face the wrong direction, but you can just see how many puddles lie on this circuit, and this final corner taking a really wide line to make sure you completely miss that inside apex and that big puddle that's going to be on the inside there, to then get the power down, charge all the way up the hill and do it all over again for another lap. With it being so short as well, Joseph, there's more, of course, opportunities for mistakes because it's the same corners over and over. You ain't really got that opportunity to have a break. You're just going to be constantly aquaplaning.
Yeah, you are. And it's going to be one of those things that they're going to have to wait and see as, well, the checker flag is out. So the session will come to an end very soon, thankfully, for all of these drivers, so we can get to the race sessions. We've got 2 sprint races this evening, 2 short and sharp 20-minute dashes around Knockhill, and I quite like the sprint race format, especially for a track like this where there can be quite a lot of laps thrown in those 20 minutes, just because it feels less samey and it gives us the chance to reset and go again. I think it suits that a lot more than a 40-minute endurance, just because by the end of that you're getting to whatever it would end up being. I can't do the maths in my head that quickly, but I think it would end up being something along the lines of like a 60-70 lap race, and around a track with limited overtaking opportunities that will reduce the risks that the drivers will take, so it makes it a little bit harder. But now we've got our grid for the race day.
Yes, we certainly do indeed. It's Will Fulks and Jack Goring, the 2 championship rivals, who line up on the front row of the grid in a rain-shortened qualifying. And it's Dan Cross and Tom Stevens who occupy row 2. In row 3, we have Chris Pooley, who's coming off an impressive podium last time out, and Matt Chambers, who ends up in 6th place. Then on row number 4, we have Pete Plasto and Ben Cullen. Of course, Ben, 2nd place in the standings. Going to be interesting to see how he can make his way up through the order in this first 20-minute sprint. David Wrench is in 9th, followed by Glenn Burry, our first AM driver, in 10th. And then into the other side of the field, we have Chris Boland and Ethan Lee, who occupy row 6, followed by Jonathan Murphy and Craig Ledoux, our 2nd AM driver, on row 7. Row 8, we have Adam Barron and Matthew Forrest, followed by, in 17th and 18th, Mark Gladwell and Ben Weston. Before we then have on row 10, Scott Eastwood and Robert Cross, who makes his debut here this evening. And then on the penultimate row, we have Beres and Joshua Lindsay. And then finally, all by himself on that final row of the grid, will be Adrian Warmington. Tommy Plasto is not here this evening, so it is just Adrian Warmington on that final row of the grid. And we are about to get underway ever so shortly. The rain has stayed, so it's going to be very tricky indeed. It is going to be a matter of survival, not a matter of trying to make some moves. So for Will Fulks and Jack Goring, they are going to be in this heated battle for the championship. And for Fulks, he has not been beaten in a qualifying or race session yet. The streak, will it continue here in Knockhill? It continued in qualifying. Will it continue in the race? It's Fulks and Goring who line up on the front row, and we are racing here in Knockhill. It's a great start from Will Fulks off the front row of the grid, and that is going to be instantly going to be Dan Cross looking to the inside of the 108 machine as he tries to make his way into turn one. There's contact. Goring, the championship leader, sent spinning. Fulks has been given an absolute lifeline with the gap he's got, and it's a huge pile up throughout the field as that's Glenn Burry dropping down the order. Ethan Lee's made his way up into 7th place. David Wrench is up into 3rd along with Chris Pauly. So starting further back may have helped some. It's hampered others. And for Jack Goring, he's dropped all the way down the field. He's to 10th place in his class, 11th place. Now we've got more cars off at the chicane. That is the likes of, I believe that's going to be Tom Stevens is one of them. It's David Wrench, actually, the number 32 machine, who is also off as well. And I believe also Darren Barris involved in that one. A frantic start. Someone's bonnet is just flown off there. That's Craig the Juice bonnet, who has just come off his car. And for Ben Weston, who started all the way down through the field in the AM category, he's now 5th place overall. A dramatic opening lap. And for Ben Weston, staring at one of the best results for an AM driver this season.
Absolutely sensational start to this race. Ridiculous action, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. One of the drivers off of the road, but a lot of them into the pit lane to fix those problems. Jonathan Murphy, one of them, Scott Eastwood, another, further down in the order now, and they're going to hope to build their ways back up. The gap between Joshua Lindsay in 8th and Glimberry in 7th, or now Adam Barron in 2nd and 7th, even as they've made that move, is going to be 4 seconds. But it is coming down, so I think that's going to be the difference between the drivers. I don't think we'll be seeing Mark Gladwell again, unfortunately, in this race. So I think he's decided to call it quits. So the remainder of the drivers out there on the circuit, we're down to 22, and that doesn't stop us having any shortage of action. Off of the road goes Joshua Lindsay in the background. That sees Matthew Forrest and Matt Chambers gaining places. Chambers as well, picking up one past Forrest. They're really struggling with the grip in the early laps. Everybody apart from Will Fulks, in fact, who now has a gap of 3 seconds ahead of the top of the field.
Yeah, Will Fulks, he was helped certainly by that incident into turn one. Got a great launch off the line, and then just saw all the chaos probably in his rearview mirror and just cars going everywhere, and he was like, thank you very much, I will take this opportunity to just take that lead and extend it by a country mile. As Weston is now up into a net P4 as Cross has gone round at the top of the hill at turn one, and unfortunately for Robert Cross, he's already a lap down as it is, I believe, and he has gone round once more. And for Matthew Forrest, he's now going to be looking to the inside here. That is going to be of Darren Barris, a little bit of argy-bargy between the pair, but it is going to be Matthew Forrest who makes his way through. Chris Pauly has made a move for 2nd place onto Tom Stevens, and it's now going to be, of course, Burry, but against Tom Stevens himself. Ben Weston must have made a mistake because he's dropped down throughout the field. He's now behind Jonathan Murphy, and Burry is looking to try take a podium position here for the AM class overall, but unfortunately gets forced wide by Tom Stevens. That was no fault of either driver, just how little grip these cars do have in these conditions. But for Burry, a big slide out of McIntyre's. And for Burry, he just needs to dial down, just needs to focus. 4th place overall is still great. He's still leading his class. Just needs to keep this on the black stuff. As I say that, I think Tom Stevens has made a mistake, and Burry is up into those overall podium places.
This is the best chance that an amateur driver's had this season, and Ethan Lee and Adam Barron won't make it easy for the 87, as they've still got 3/4 of the race yet to go, so plenty still can happen. One thing that's almost already decided, unless there's any mistakes, which we can't rule out, is the 31 Will Fulks with a gap of 10 seconds and growing over the rest of the field. But this does mean that he is coming into range of drivers to lap. And, well, the next one up, Dan Cross, he's going to have a go on the 263, of course. Started all the way up with him, but now he might well get lapped by Fulks here as the gap gets up to 11 seconds. And off of the road, I think that was Craig Ledoux. Indeed it was, and he's now gone a lap down, really struggling with the grip for himself, unfortunately. He's been able to get back going in the end, but he's down right at the very bottom of the order. Only Mark Gladwell is further down, who is our only retirement. So Ledoux, now a lap down, will be wanting to chase the 2 crosses. He's got Dan ahead of him, Rob ahead of him, and, well, Matthew Forrest all over the back of, who is this? This will be Ben Weston for that 8th place overall. Going to give it a go as a 78, but I don't think he's quite got the grip just yet. You can see there is no dry line out there.
No, certainly not indeed. The rain is still pelting this circuit. You can see there is no visibility either for Forest. Just having a look at that rain light of Ben Weston, it really comes to a stop into that final corner. Can Forest get the drive out of that final bend to make his run all the way up the hill into that first corner to have a lunge to the inside line? He's in the slipstream, he's pulling to that right-hand side. It's going to be a risky run if he wants to try and get this one done, maybe even just force Weston into the mistake. And he has forced Weston into a mistake. Off the road goes Ben Weston. Forest with the good old up and under. Thank you very much. There's a car off in the background. That, I believe, is Darren Barris. And Forest makes his way up into 7th place. And that is lovely stuff there from the pro driver, putting the AM under pressure. That's exactly what you need to do in these category splits. As Tom Stevens is round and he's into David Wrench, as they both have huge damage on the front of their machines. And for Tom Stevens, he's got the meatball flag. It's a retirement from David Wrench, who was driving so well in this race as well. And for Tom Stevens, from what was looking like a potential second place, now leads to him having no bumper and bonnet in this one, as he now gets passed by teammate Barris, I believe that was. And of course, as we head back, as we mentioned the front of the field, as we've mentioned Fulks a few times, that gap now 16 seconds, and this is a perfect opportunity for him to snatch crucial points in that championship battle.
Really is, and in the background we just saw a move for one of the drivers, Jonathan Murphy, making his way through on second place, Ben Weston from the AM category, but now Glenberry has a chance for first place in the category and a podium overall. He's built up that gap to over a second over Ethan Lee, but it keeps flip-flopping up and down, and so it's going to be all down to what Berry can do later on in this race session. The pressure is all on the 87 to pick up the podium, and further down the order there is a couple of moves. I think Ben Weston might have made a mistake because Barris and Goring have gone past. Black flag for Tom Stevens. I'd imagine that's for ignoring Meatball potentially, and well, he's going to be out of this race session is the 808, so that's unfortunate, and he's going to hope to pick it back up heading into the next race of the day. Pete Plasto and Ben Cullen ready to go for a fight. Chris Boland, Scott Eastwoods, Jonathan Murphy just ahead, and then Barris and Goring behind make it the closest battle on track.
Yeah, it certainly does indeed. It's just in front of Plasto. Boland is really trying to put Scott Eastwood here under some incredible pressure. And is he going to be able to do it? Of course, Eastwood now inherits that second place in the AM category. It's been a very, very chaotic opening 8 minutes of this race. It's been carnage throughout, as that's going to be Eastwood into a slide and off the road. I think he just about avoids the wall. Yes, he does. And he's able to get it back going straight away. Hopefully for his sake, in terms of class, he's ahead of Ben Weston still. And yes, he is. But that would have been a heart-in-the-mouth moment for Scott Eastwood, who just went a little bit offline, got dragged onto the curb, then onto the grass, the rear of the car just stepping out underneath him, and the very lucky boy to make sure it does not go into that wall, but crumbling under that pressure from Pete Plasto. As we now look at Jonathan Murphy, who's now all over the back himself of Chris Boland. And is he going to be able to make this move himself? Boland runs wide through the first corner, got to compromise his line through turn 2 and then into McIntyre's. Is Murphy close enough for the lunge? No, he is not. So this battle for 7th place in class, 8th place overall will continue. And for Jonathan Murphy, he needs to now try and put Boland under the pressure, try get the same mistake that we saw from Eastwood. And Jack Goring, who was in the pit lane on that one, was just in the background of shot there as the Jew sets the fastest lap. And Goring to the inside of Ben Cullen, his championship rival. A lovely move into Clark Curve.
Certainly was, and it was a move made up. He's through on Ben Cullen, who wants to fight it back, but he can't quite do so just yet. The outside line does beckon, he's going to go for it, but I don't think there's going to be enough turning on the wet line to be able to make his way back up into the top 10 in class. This is going to be a very scrappy race for these drivers. It's certainly a more scrappy race than they would have been expecting or hoping for heading into this Knockhill race. And Jack Goring 10th, Ben Cullen 11th. It's about picking up the pieces and trying to do as much as you can to hold station. Chris Boland and Jonathan Murphy stopped in, or swapped even, in the foreground as we just saw there. And, well, it will be the fastest lap for Will Fulks, 54.466 for himself, sliding off in the background. Pete Plasto's off, and the 312 off of the road, just rejoining ahead of Darren Barris, who's going to go to the inside. And Pete Plasto demonstrates why you don't want to make a mistake in that pack, because he loses so much.
He certainly has indeed. And Glenbury, I thought for a second, I think he's just having some connection issues. I thought for a second I thought he just crashed and retired from the race. I just had my heart in my mouth. I really did just think Burry made a mistake there after being put under so much pressure from Ethan Lee, but he's actually pulled out that gap to Lee behind him. That gap now 1.4 seconds as we make our way through the chicane. Halfway now into this race, Boden's been able to get back past Jonathan Murphy. He's off the road and into the side of Goring, and Ben Cullen might be able to capitalise, but no, Murphy's car just parked perfectly in the place for Goring to hold on to the position, but maybe some damage will be on that 108 machine. And of course for Will Fawkes, he'll want some damage onto, a bit more damage onto Jack Goring. He wants more drama for Jack because of course they are championship rivals. 8th place currently for Goring. It's still a big swing in Will Fawkes' favour in the championship standings with that first place he's got currently, but he can still certainly pull this one back, Goring. He needs to at least get up into that top 5, I feel like, for a decent result after an abysmal start. As he makes his way up into turn 1 now, he's certainly got the pace to hunt down Boland, as Ethan Lee has been able to get past Glenn Burry, who I think this time might have just made a mistake, as he is dropping down the field at a rate of knots, and Matthew Forrest is now going to be all over the back of him.
Yeah, it really is at the moment. Glenn Berry is just trying to cling on to position at the moment, but he may well be struggling. That was the contact that we saw between them. It was the 62 and the 87, and of course that sees them unfortunately struggling for now. And of course both of them down the order, trying to get through on a lapped car is never as easy as you'd hope.
No, it's certainly not when blue flag rules aren't in play, as Matthew Forrest goes to the inside, and so as well is going to be Matt Chambers on that inside too. No, sorry, that is David Wrench, I believe, that has just come back out of the pit lane. But for Glenn Burry, so heartbreaking. It's not even a mistake he's made. It's just he's been tagged by Cross, who, of course, was just trying to keep out the way. It's so difficult in these conditions, especially in that corner, to go 2x2, and it did not work, as we see Chris Boland now all over the back here of Chambers, who has completely lost his bonnet and has not come into the pit lane. Certainly will not help with that straight line speed, but good maybe for a bit more aero and a bit more drag onto the car, as Goring is now able to get a good launch off of the chicane as Boland went into the back of Chambers, and Jack Goring now up into 7th place overall, and is all over the back here of course, Matt Chambers, who is missing that bonnet, and he's going to be all over the back of him. Can he make the lunge into the final corner? The 108 machine, he's trying to find that inside line, switches back to the outside. We'll just try the up and under, try get the exit. But he has a huge slide and goes round. Jack Goring round once again. A mistake from the 108 this time, and he's going to drop all the way down to 11th in class, and he has to do all that hard work all over again.
He will. It's very unfortunate for these drivers. They're working so hard to keep it on the road here, and well, it's going to be very, very difficult, as it's proving to be right now. Ben Cullen trying to fight his way back through the order. He is gaining positions through other drivers' mistakes, and his championship might well be aided by this race, just the carnage that's going on at the moment. And Will Fawkes the same, 26 seconds the gap between himself and Chris Pawley at the moment. And well, Chris Boland all over the back of Matt Chambers. He's got Ben Cullen for company as well in the background, but the rain is lashing down here at Knockhill.
It certainly is indeed. And for Chris Boland now, he now wants to try and get back past on Matt Chambers, who of course did cost him that position for a few moments against Jack Goring before Goring made that mistake. And for Boland, he'll want to try and get back by on Chambers, as we now look at Glenn Burry, who are still having some minor connection issues, as that was, I believe, Boland going around the outside of Matt Chambers in the background, and Chambers is round, and that's Jonathan Murphy into the side of him. That's going to be big damage on the number 7, and look at the trainer cars that feed themselves through. And I believe Will Fawkes has now lapped up to 11th place, maybe a little bit higher, maybe past Matt Chambers now. But for Will Fawkes, he is flying. He's just lapped Pete Plasto. He is lapped up to 9th place in the pro category, 10th place in the overall field. He is flying, and he's 27 seconds, I believe, ahead of Chris Pawley. Will Fawkes is a man on the mission, and he is absolute superb in these conditions. As now, look, he's just made his way through on to Ben Cullen, I believe that was there. So he's now lapped all the way up to 9th place overall. This is unheard of, especially around a circuit like this in these conditions, to have this much confidence, this much pace, and just to be this fast. It is so quick and so consistent from Will Fulks.
Yeah, it really is at the moment. It's impressive stuff. It's really impressive stuff for him to keep it going, especially with all the carnage that we've had in the further down order. And, I mean, just everybody, I think, apart from him, has been involved in something. And we saw that demonstrated at the start of the race where Will Fulks drove off like nothing had happened, and behind him, it was like Skittles. But now he's made the most of that one. There's been no mistakes from the number 31, and so he will just be extending that gap at the top of the order throughout the course of the rest of this race. The battles are further down in the order and none closer than the fight for third place in the AM category. Craig Ledoux has managed to get the up and under on Ben Weston, and Joshua Lindsay makes it even worse for Weston as he finds his way into fourth. And the number 17 is going to apply as much pressure as he can on Craig Ledoux in the final 4 minutes of this race. It's going to get very tense between the two.
Certainly is indeed. Should have about 5 more laps, I believe, for these drivers. As of course, the time they cross the line. Chris Boland's been able to make his way past on Glenn Burry, who his main goal now will surely just be to survive in this AM lead and just bring this one home, even if it does mean you lose some places overall. Jack Goring now all over the back of Scott Eastwood here. That's how far that spin dropped him back as Goring late on the brakes. Is he going to go straight on? No. Somehow got that stop for the apex and in front of Scott Eastwood. A spectacular move there from Jack Goring, who I thought was going to go straight off the road. But no, was able to hold on to things as now Goring late onto the brakes into the final corner. How far can he climb? How quickly can he make his way up through the field in the remaining 3 minutes? And will be 10 seconds to go. Will Fulks has now got a 30-second lead on Chris Pooley, and his fastest lap of the race is a 53.4. If there was maybe, I would say, another 5 minutes added onto this one, Joseph, we could have seen Will Fulks lap the entire field. That's how fast he is. His fastest lap against the likes of Ethan Lee is a whole 1.7 seconds quicker as Plasto off the road trying to apply some pressure onto Barris. Into the wall went in the kitty litter, and that was a big incident, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see major suspension damage to that car.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either, and Pete Plasto has got a meatball flag out for himself, so it's not unsurprising. 2 minutes 25 left in this race session, and it's absolute carnage out there, and I don't expect it to stop anytime soon. Glenn Berry as well, unfortunate. The leader of the AM category, repairs needed for the 87, and that might mean he drops down the order, and Scott Eastwood could come home to take an unlikely victory. Chris Boland, at the meantime, trying to have a go at Matthew Forrest, but can't quite do so just yet. And Will Fulks catching up to this fight for the top 5.
Certainly is indeed. And for Glenn Burry, when he just needed to bring it home, he needed as little risks as possible. It has all gone wrong, and I don't even think he's on the circuit anymore. I think he might have just disconnected from the session. Maybe, I'm not too sure, but that's so unfortunate for Glenn Burry. The rain has stopped here in Scotland, and has stopped at the Knockhill Circuit, so it is now just all the spray being kicked up onto the windscreen of cars. Will Fulks goes even quicker, now on a 52.7. That is going to be 1.3 seconds quicker than Chris Pooley's best lap, and he's 33 seconds behind. And of course, he still has to navigate potentially these cars just in front of him. Chris Boland still really trying to put that pressure onto Forrest. There's some slight contact between the pair. Forrest still just about able to hold on to the position as we now head into the right-hander of Clark, and are we going to see the move be made? And that's Will Fulks just on the tail of these two. I wouldn't be surprised if he just takes it a little bit easy here, just to allow these two to battle with his Boland, making contact with Matthew Forrest off into the grass, somehow keeps it facing in the right direction. Ben Cullen says thank you very much, I'll take 6th place from you, mate, and he now moves himself up into that 6th place spot. Boland down to 7th. Will Fulks will now try and get, of course, past here on to Matthew Forrest. And for Fulks, he just needs to keep this one clean and make sure he don't get taken out by the cars from behind him. And I believe this is now the final tour of the circuit. And for Will Fulks, it's been domination. And for Jack Goring, in the championship battle, he might just be able to pick 9th place off from Jonathan Murphy.
He may well do. We will see what they can do later on in this race. 10 seconds to go, so this will be the final lap, I think, when Will Fulks crosses the line. And Jack Goring trying to defend at the moment this 10th place. And, wow, he's going to go through on Jonathan Murphy to make his way into the top 9 as the checkered flag is out there now. And Will Fulks will be heading through for his final lap. The 31 will weave his way across the line to take victory in race 1 here today. And we've got lots of drivers finishing at different points. Matt Forrest, the second finisher, Ben Cullen, Chris Boland across the line in 5th, 6th and 7th respectively. We'll be waiting for Chris Pauly some point soon, but what a drive from the 31.
Domination once again. The streak continues in Knockhill, but we still have one more round to go, which of course is a reverse grid as he launches it straight over the curb. That's one way to celebrate a dominant victory in style, and even broke the car enough it started smoking. This is how big the gap was between Pauly and Fulks. Fulks has just gone through the chicane, and Pauly has just come across the line now. He would have been in Clark, would Will Fulks, with the speed he was on, and Pauly just across the line, still a very, very solid second place. It'll be Ethan Lee who will round out that overall podium, a first podium, I believe, actually, for Ethan Lee. So big congratulations to him, and Chris Pauly adds another podium to his tally. That's 3 for the season. But at the front of the field, the story remains the same. It is domination from Will Fulks, and he certainly is coming for that championship lead. The number 31 machine. The streak certainly continues. Not been beaten in the competitive session all season long, but will that change heading into the next sprint race? And Scott Eastwood as well, also looking to take that championship lead with a P1 in his class. But your results for the pro category, it's Fulks from Pauly, 37 seconds separate the top two. There's Ethan Lee a further 10 back, followed by Adam Barron in 4th, who I believe picks up one of his best results of the season. Then the drivers who have been lapped by Will Fulks, he got all the way up to 5th in class. It's Forrest, Cullen, Boland, Barris, Goring only 9th, and Murphy in 10th. Then the rest of your pro field, it was Tom Stevens, Pete Plasto, who crashed with only a handful of laps to go, Matt Chambers, David Wrench, and Dan Cross round out your pro field. Into the AM category, it was Scott Eastwood who came out on top. Certainly a great way to bounce back after not being here last week. Joshua Lindsay, Craig Ledoux, Ben Weston, Adrian Warmington, Mark Gladwell, Glenn Burry, and Rob Cross, who was 10 laps down in the end, round out that field. But of course, Joseph, race 1 is now done. It's Eastwood and Fulks who dominated those races. But you know what this now means for Will Fulks? It's time for that reverse grid. Where will he end up lining up? So, Joseph, what is your prediction from 7 to 12?
I'm going to go for 9 because it seems a random enough number that I reckon that's going to be the one that's pulled out. I can see it on there. So, well, let's hope so.
I'm going to go for... I'm going to go for 11. I feel like 11 will be quite a good number to have. Not exactly at the very back, but not at the very front. Oh, it's going to be 9, Joseph. The prediction was right. Seems like your commentators cursed the will.
Or I've rigged it. I've not done that, just for clarification. But yeah, I mean, look, listen. Nobody, you just can't reach my levels. It will be 9 places, so that means that he'll be starting from 9th, and well,
Goring is on pole.
Ooh.
That is going to be big for the championship. Jack Goring, who has had his worst race of the season here, Joseph, has somehow come out of things, starting on pole for the next race. How this format really flips things. You can have a poor race 1, still finish in that top, 7th to 12th place spot, and then end up taking the pole for the next race. So for Jack Goring, that's a lifeline in these championships.
Oh, it certainly is. It certainly is. I feel bad for Scott Eastwood now. If we'd have spun it to 11, we would have had an AM driver on pole position with a big gap to the rest of the field. But yeah, I mean, Jack Goring, sensational for him to start from there. And I think Will Fulks is going to struggle here. I really think he's going to struggle to make his way through the field. Knowing the carnage that was at the start, he's going to have to avoid all of it.
Yeah, that's going to be the big issue. Do we get the repeat of what happened in race 1? Right there when it came to, of course, it started from P2, so it's going to be interesting indeed. But before we get the session underway. Shall we have some quick interviews, Joseph? Shall we start with debutant pole sitter Ethan Lee and see if we can get Chris Pauley in just after? It will just depend on time. But let's get Ethan Lee in. Hello, Ethan. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hello. How you all doing?
Doing good. How are you after your first podium of the season?
A bit wet. I'm a slight bit wet. I had a bit of an incident, so I was left-hand down for most of that race after lap 2. But managed to do it all in the end. It was quite, shocking, as it were.
Yeah, I bet it certainly was indeed. Just talk us through that race. How difficult was it? Not only with that suspension damage, of course, but just those conditions as well. How tricky were they?
Well, you got to think back to the last race where we had the dusty conditions. Obviously, a lot more intense than that, but you just don't know where to put the car. You don't know where to brake. It's always changing because it was drying by the end. And I think by the time you get to the final 2 laps, you're like, I've got to try and just find...
It didn't seem the most fun for plenty of the drivers. And talk about lap 1 as well. Of course, you started a bit more in the middle of the pack. Just talk us through that turn 1 incident. It just seemed like cars were going left, right and centre. Was the suspension damage caused by getting tagged ever so slightly, or were you a little bit fortunate where you were just able to find a gap and squeeze just about through?
So I'll quote probably one of the best songs I'm going to think about for this track and the rain is Jesus Take the Wheel. That is what happened. He took the wheel and I got through the incident. Sadly, after that, when it came to that chicane, a car... Well, I think I did a bit of a spin, and you get a little bit onto the gravel. It grips you, and you kind of like half on the track, half not, and the car just clipped me a little bit, and that's what kind of got me sort of my right front suspension damage. But at the end of the day, I felt, I can always drive a little bit left-hand down or whatever, so it wasn't too difficult in the end. And for me, it was quite a fun race, to be honest. I mean, if everyone was spinning in the back, I feel sorry for them.
Yeah, there was quite a few cars spinning around. And I'll throw you over to Joseph to see if he has any questions. But congratulations on race 1 and good luck for race 2.
Thank you very much.
Obviously, we saw all the carnage early on in that race on the first lap. And you'll be starting right in the thick of things in 7th. What's the mentality you're taking into the first lap, and in particular the first corner?
So I don't really know the conditions where it's going to be, but if it's raining, Jesus Take the Wheel again, and if it's going to be dry conditions, I think it will still be Jesus Take the Wheel. It's cold tyres. We know how the Porsche is with cold tyres, and wet tyres, they seem the exact same when it's dry or wet. So you just got to be very careful and just tiptoe around the drivers who do spin, because there's inevitably going to be those spinners who want to try and chance it and get a few more positions. But yeah, I mean, I've got my podium. I'm going to retire after this race probably, and we'll see how it goes, I think.
Jesus seems to be doing a lot of driving for you tonight. Are you doing any of it at all?
When it came to the final lap, you know, like when you're just pushing it over the line. Jesus can't take the wheel over the line, but I certainly did. Yeah, but before I go, thank you to my fans. Got a call out, Holty and Bryn. They've probably been in the chat with you guys. I don't know if they have or not, but I'm going to say hi to them, and also Rich. They've asked me to call them out when I go into an interview. So,
well, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, I'll see you if it's a bit wet. Right, in a bit.
That was Ethan Lee, ladies and gentlemen. His thoughts of race 1. Let's bring over second place man as well, Chris Pauley. Hello, Chris. Can you hear us?
Good evening.
Good evening indeed. Of course, that's now your 3rd podium of the season in your hands. Just talk us through that race. That seemed to be absolute chaos and just super difficult to keep the car on the road.
Yeah, just survival, to be honest. I got really lucky at the start. 2 or 3 cars went off in front of me. I went from 5th to 2nd and just stayed there. But it's kind of bittersweet because, I mean, Will Folks is in a different league. I think he finished about 37 seconds in front of us. So happy for a P2, but there's obviously a long way to go before we're fighting for the win.
Yeah, it seems like there certainly is indeed. But of course, that race, you were in 2nd for a majority of it. You got past, I believe it was Stevens for that second place. Just once you got into that spot, just was it focus on survival at that point? You had the gap to the cars behind, so was it just make sure you bring it home? You ain't got the pace of Will. There's no point pushing on to the car in front. Just make sure you get this second place and stay out of trouble.
It was exactly that. I saw Will putting in fastest lap after fastest lap, and I thought I'll just try and guarantee the second place, to be honest. And that's what happened. I was holding the gap, and towards the end it started to build. So, yeah, just happy. It was a clean race, no spins, and ultimately got that second place. Good to have a bit of consistency now.
Certainly is indeed. And also about qualifying as well. Quickly want to mention on that front as well. How difficult was it to find a gap in the road where there wasn't someone directly in front of you to be able to set a clean and a lap that you're able to fully push onto? How difficult was it to find that room?
Yeah, really difficult, and it was changing conditions as well, so you're constantly trying to adapt to it. So I think I got 5th place, and then it started to rain, and that was pretty much quali over. So you had to be quite quick out there to get it.
Certainly quick enough. And then one final one from me before I hand you over to Joseph. Just, of course, talking about the race as well. That lap 1 incident. What's your thoughts on it? Of course, we saw cars going left, right, and centre. You were able to just about slip through. Was it kind of like a parting the seas moment in front of you to move up to 3rd place?
It was exactly that. I did feel like Moses as I came through. I didn't really see any of the incident, to be honest. I saw 2 cars spin to my left, and then that was it. I was up in 2nd place. And I think I led it for about 2 corners before Will Folks had the pace to go past. So, yeah, it was good.
Indeed. But, Joseph, is there any questions from you?
Well, I mean, I mean, of course, Chris, long time no see. I watched you at Silverstone last weekend, so it's good to see you in the virtual world once again. I just wanted to ask, on that basis, what is the difference between the real life racing versus, of course, the Porsches that you have to race, that you get to race this evening?
Yeah, so obviously I race a Clio 182. It's very different to this. That's just understeer throughout. This is rear wheel drive, so very different. But I will say that the quality of racing in both the Armed Forces Race Challenge, which is the live event, and this championship is both excellent. And you know, this is a fantastic way to get into motorsport, to get the practice in before you do the live stuff on the weekend. That being said, you probably watch the race. I always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I never seem to be able to get the win. I'm always just off the top step. So yeah, we'll push. Maybe this race will be the chance for a win.
Hopefully so. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We've just seen that the lobby's open, so we'll leave you to it.
Perfect. Thanks, gents.
That was some good insight from Chris there on the real life championship as well. Of course, I think you were quite eager to ask that one, Joseph. I could kind of see throughout the whole time I was asking the questions, you were eager to ask that. Just, of course, you've seen this championship as well in real life, as you mentioned as well. Just how much of a different atmosphere is it in seeing those Clios in real life compared to these Porsches?
I mean, it's great to watch. It really is great to watch in real life. It was very fun having a look at them the other day when they were racing around. They were racing around the Silverstone National circuit. So, funnily enough, it was pretty similar times to what they were setting here, but it was a dry half of Silverstone, really, rather than a wet Knockhill. So it was interesting to see. And well, I mean, the cars that they've got out there are not all the same, so it's good to see the differences between them, because of course, as Chris said, he drives a Clio in the series. You've got BMWs, you've got Fords, you've got Audi TTs that were racing. It was fun to see Jasmine Norman take the victory in race 1 there. It was been sensational start. Felt a little bit Will Folksy in the end, the way that she charged through the field from the back, and he's going to hope to do the same. She started from 8th, he's starting from 9th.
Oh, it's going to be interesting then. Of course, Folks has to, the difference really between Silverstone and Knockhill on that race start is that Copse is a little bit wider than turn 1 here. So it's going to be difficult for Will Folks to get his way through the chaos. But we saw Ethan Lee do it. He was in amongst that mid-pack as well, Joseph. So if the cards fall his way, he certainly could get a good enough start to avoid the chaos. And if it's dry as well, it kind of just gives him that little bit more of an opportunity to keep the car facing in the right direction out of turn 1 on the opening lap, because I would say there was more chance of a less incidents and not as much of a pile-up heading into that first corner.
Yeah, it's certainly not, but we will see what will happen. Of course, no qualifying this time around. It will be a reverse top 9 from the last race. Everybody else will be heading in order. So without further ado, we're going to take you trackside, back to Scotland, back to Knockhill.
We certainly are, and as you can see, it's still overcast, but it very much looks like a dry circuit. No, it's raining. I spoke too soon. We do have more rain here in Knockhill. Got caught out there by the game loading in the weather conditions. So we are back for more slip and slide action here in the hills of Scotland. And it is going to be very interesting indeed. I wonder if Gordon Shedden, of course, manager of the circuit, is going to be watching on, a BTCC driver, of course. And, of course, these cars in real life are on the TOCA support package. So be interesting to see how this also develops into real life as well, and how that race will go too. Definitely not a shameless plug there, but, of course, for Jack Goring, he's on pole position here. Will Fulks is down in 9th. It is a reverse roles from race 1, where, of course, Goring, after that opening lap, was put down at the back of the field. This is a chance to reclaim some crucial championship points, but for Will Fulks, the streak has not been broken, even in a reverse grid format, and we are underway here in race 1, as Pete Plasto's been race 2, sorry, as Pete Plasto has been black flagged straight away off the lines. We make our way into that first corner. That's Will Fulks off the road and nearly flipping. It's Will Fulks into the wall at turn 1. Both of the championship protagonists have had incidents at the first corner, and for Will Fulks, he drops all the way down to 15th overall and 21st place. Sorry, 15th in class and 21st place overall. It's that Glenburry round and getting tagged by the number 31. And for Jack Goring, he leads the way from a second clear of Chris Boland, who is in second, from Barris, Cullen, Paulie, Murphy, Eastwood up into 7th place overall. Then it's Lee, Stevens, Ledoux, Lindsay, Barron, Wrench, Weston, Gladwell and Matthew Forrest, who round out that top 16. And that was a dramatic opening corner once again. Maybe not as chaotic, but certainly was crucial for the championship, as Will Fulks into the wall and with a big comeback drive on his hands now.
Certainly is a big comeback drive indeed, and well, he'll be right at the very back of the field. Only Glenbarry is behind him. We've got 22 drives in this race session, so we dropped 1 from race 1, and well, at the moment it looks like it's going to be very difficult for Fulks to fight his way through the order. Of course, that's what happens when you find yourself in the mid-pack. He lucked out in race 1 with the fact that he was on pole and was able to build that gap. So in race 2, for him to get caught up in those incidents, it sort of feels as though, well, you completely avoided it in race 1. Here's karma back to bite you. Ethan Lee under pressure at the moment from Tom Stevens. He's got Scott Eastwood just ahead of him, looking to make his way through on the driver in the lead of the AM class. But you can see how difficult it is. The visibility behind the car in front that almost saw Lee into the back of Eastwood.
Yeah, that was nearly chaos there for Lee and Eastwood, as that is, of course, Goring now setting the fastest lap of the race in that race lead. 1.8 seconds clear now of Chris Boland. He's got that clean air. He's got all that visibility that he needs to just try and push on, but he can't make the mistakes we saw him make in that previous session. Matt Chambers now trying to go side by side here, and that's contact, I believe, with Dan Cross, and it is Dan Cross who's gone spinning straight into McIntyre's. Styled it out quite nicely, actually, because he was just able to get that straight onto the road and carry on. As we now make our way here with David Wrenches, he's trying to put some pressure onto Craig Ledoux. Of course, Ledoux second in class. Eastwood still leading the way in the AM category, and it's Wrench 10th place in his pro field, as Ethan Lee's made the move onto Scott Eastwood, but he's gone too deep into the corner, and Eastwood gets straight back by with the up and under. Ledoux is now side by side further back with David Wrench, who's been able to make his way through on the number 13, and for Scott Eastwood, he's still ahead of Ethan Lee, and for David Wrench, he is up into, that is now going to be 11th place overall, and Craig Ledoux drops down to 12th place overall. It looks like the sun is certainly shining a lot more here, Joseph, than it was in that last race in the opening stages, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see this rain stopping rather shortly.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Although I thought that about the qualifying session, and suddenly it just seemed to light up. So, hey, I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Jonathan Murphy and Adam Barron side by side, just ahead of Craig Ledoux, as we could see just very briefly on our end. And there you go, still side by side as they head down to the next braking zone. Who's going to be able to get ahead? He's still trying to squeeze through. Adam Barron trying to give it a go, and he remains alongside on the exit of the corner. Jonathan Murphy is going to try to keep that momentum up because he was able to get the right push, and there might be a bit of contact between the two into turn one. They're going to try to avoid it, and they are going to avoid it successfully. So very good racing between the two. I got a bit nervous there when I saw they were struggling for grip. Adam Barron struggling once again, and Jonathan Murphy, I don't think expected Barron's speed loss, and so there was a bit of contact between the two in the end, and well, Barron drops down.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Barron to drop down throughout the field as Will Fulks carries on that great pace. It's Scott Eastwood off the road somewhere. Where's Scott Eastwood? He's tumbling down the order, and he's off at the chicane, and he's down to 4th place in his class, and he's now fallen all the way down throughout the field. He's going to be in, I believe, 16th place now after that moment. I think Jonathan Murphy is now battling his way with Matthew Forrest. Lindsay has just been able to make his way through. Stevens is up into 7th place. David Wrench in 8th. It's all kicking off at this final hairpin, it seems, as this train carries on going through. Paulie now sets the fastest lap of this race. He's up to 5th place overall, and he is going to try and hunt down the cars in front. Will the bridesmaid tale come to an end, or will Jack Goring carry on that streak once again, this time for, of course, Chris Paulie? Talking about the streak, Will Fulks' competitive streak is looking like it's going to come to an end. He may have the fastest lap, was holding the fastest lap at one point, but he's well off down at the bottom of the field, as that's Ben Weston talking about going off into the kitty litter. So he's in amongst the pack now is Will Fulks, and this is dangerous territory as he tags Dan Cross, and off goes the 263 machine, who teleports back to the pits. And for Will Fulks, he is now into 17th place overall. He's 12th in the pro category, but just look how far he is off the back of the likes of the top 5. They're making their way through the first corner. He's into the final corner. It is going to be complete commiserations here for Will Fulks, and for Jack Goring. It's just keep it on the road, get this race victory, and you have a huge buffer into those final 2 rounds in the championship standings.
Certainly do, a huge buffer indeed, and this is what he's going to be hoping for as he recovers his way through this race. But that wasn't very good for the confidence, I don't imagine, and so he's going to try to put it out of his mind and go once again. But yeah, big shame for, of course, the driver he made contact with that went off, and we will see what they will do throughout the remainder of this session. These drivers, as Dan Cross, of course, the driver he made contact with, currently in the pit lane, presumed to be out of this race. Ben Cullen, the latest to set the fastest lap, and it's very interesting in any championship, really, but when you've got someone as dominant as Will Fulks is pace-wise, it's very interesting to see whenever somebody else rises to the fore. Whenever they have problems, or of course they start further down like Will Fulks did, it's always fascinating to see who it is that takes control. And at the moment it seems pretty open, but Fulks sets the fastest lap and Craig Ledoux runs a little bit wide. He's got Joshua Lindsay for company in the fight for the AM class.
Yeah, this is going to be for the AM class race lead, of course, and for Craig Ledoux, just needs to keep this one on the road, just needs to stay in front of Lindsay and hit his marks. Very difficult to do around a circuit like this, and the rain is coming back down once again. It did stop briefly, and it's now coming back down onto the circuit. Matt Chambers is now going to look to the inside here of Mark Gladwell, who himself had a very disappointing race 1. Will be looking to definitely improve things in race 2, so if he could hold off Matt Chambers, it would certainly be quite a nice addition. But Chambers looking to the inside here to make our way into that first corner. Is he going to be late enough on the brakes to get the position? He is, but will he be able to get it stopped in time? Yes, he can. Up into that will now be 13th place overall. Fulks with another fastest lap of this race, up to 16th place overall now for the number 31. He is absolutely flying at the moment. His fastest lap is 8 tenths clear of race leader Jack Goring's fastest lap at this current moment in time, but he still needs to fight his way through the AM drivers, past Matt Chambers, as well as Eastwood is now run a little bit wide through Clark Curve, and that's going to give Fulks the opportunity to get the momentum, to get the run into that final corner. It's going to be late on the brakes into that final part of the circuit, and you're expecting Will Fulks to find his way through, can just seem to find grip wherever he goes. And that smack against the wall here, Joseph, and nearly flipping over, hasn't affected the car too badly. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some suspension damage, but it's not really impacting his performance at all.
No, isn't at the moment. I think there's some pieces of damage that you can just get away with for these drivers, and we will see how much it's going to affect them at the moment, as Jack Goring starting to eke out that gap at the top of the field. 3.3 the difference between himself and second place. Ben Cullen contact between Stevens and Wrench is going to try to retake that position as they head down towards the next braking zone. Adam Barron also involved in this fight. There's less than a tenth between them. Stevens has the track position, Wrench has the outside line. Here comes Jonathan Murphy around the outside of Barron. Can he take that position, or is he going to have to sit back? They'll remain 2 by 2 as they head down the straight. Who's going to take the position? Who's going to take the advantage? David Wrench up the top of this group. Tom Stevens slots into second. Jonathan Murphy through on Barron and looking to pressure off the back of the number 89.
Certainly is, as that's Steven to the inside of Wrench into McIntyre's, and he's just about been able to get it stopped. And that was a beautiful move. It was a beautiful move to that contact. Murphy and also Barron making contact. Someone else up there, that's Josh Lindsay, who was fighting for second place in the AM category. He's now off the road, and that's invited Will Fulks and Matt Chambers through. Fulks is up now to 9th place in class. So for Jack Goring, it might not even be over yet in that championship battle. And it certainly could see Will Fulks climbing his way right up the order and still getting a somewhat respectable result out of things after being backwards and in the wall at turn 1. At the start of this race, Will Fulks is now up into 10th place overall and 9th place in class. The number 31 machine, the streak may come to an end here in the Scottish Highlands, but of course for Will Fulks, he will not care. He will just want to at least keep that gap steady, stabilise that ship, and make sure he keeps that gap close to Jack Goring in front of him as he applies the pressure to Matt Chambers. Just look at the difference in confidence over the curbs here at the chicane. And is he going to look to the inside here at Clark Curve? I don't see Stevens fighting this one too aggressively. Chambers fighting this one too aggressively. He doesn't. And Will Fulks makes his way through up into 8th place in class now. Next, he'll have to get past Craig Ledoux. And then there'll be Tom Stevens, who will be next on his list. Will Chambers fight this one back to the inside into the final corner? No, he will not. And for Will Fulks, it's 8th place overall. And Jack Goring, yes, he may get this race victory, but that championship lead at this current rate is still going to be sliced in half by the time we finish this evening.
This is exactly why, we like to see these reverse grid races spicing things up. Will Fulks has to contend with being in the middle order, and it's not something he's had to contend with before, so he doesn't know how to operate with it, but at the moment he's learning as he goes, and he does very well. Tom Stevens under pressure from Craig Ledoux, or putting David Wrench even under pressure. Craig Ledoux's the car waiting in behind the two that go side by side. Wrench has the exit, but does Tom Stevens have the grip? With a little bit of a slide from David Wrench. He's having to run offline at the moment, and Stevens trying to take the outside, but you can see the difference between the dry and the wet lines at the moment as Stevens tries to do the around the outside move to try and pick up that pace, but he can't quite do so, just has to sit in behind, and that will be frustrating, I think, because he knows he's got that pace. He just needs to craft the perfect opportunity.
Yes, he certainly does indeed. Fulks with another fastest lap of this race, and on that last lap against Craig Ledoux and the likes of Stevens and Wrench, he was around about 0.8 of a second quicker. Actually, compared to Wrench and Stevens, he was 2 seconds clear of those two on the final lap. 0.3 clear, as you can see, of Jack Goring. That gap 22 seconds between Fulks and Jack. But of course for Jack, he has got that race lead. He's got Ben Weston just in front of him. Just need to navigate this lap traffic nice and easily and just make his way through the rest of this race. Chris Paulding's been able to make his way back onto the podium. Ben Cullen, who of course is second place in the standings, he is up into second place as well. For Tom Stevens, he's still trying to apply that pressure onto David Wrench for 6th place in class and 6th place overall, and a big slide through turn 1. Very, very lucky to keep that facing in the right direction. And Craig Ledoux, even though he's in the AM category, we know he's quick in these somewhat mixed conditions. We saw it at Spa as well, Joseph. He's keeping up with these pro boys quite nicely, and Will Fawkes will be breathing down his neck in a matter of moments, but I still believe that Craig Ledoux might have the pace to be a bit of a nuisance. Commentators curse such. He goes off the road, and Will Fawkes says, thank you very much. At least I don't have to get past the AM traffic.
I can almost see your face there as you spotted what happened, and it was that's quite entertaining, to be honest. Craig Ledoux trying to hold on to position ahead of Matt Chambers at the moment now. 6 minutes and 25. This one's gone absolutely rapidly in comparison to all the other races or the other race even in the qualifying session as well that we've had today. This one has flown by, and Will Fawkes with another fast lap of the race trying to fly by as well. Scott Eastwood all over the back at the moment and trying to pressure ahead. It's going to be alongside into the first corner, potentially on Matt Forrest. Is he going to give it a go? Is he going to be able to make it work? He's not going to be able to make it work. He's just going to wait in behind. And wow, the 4th place. He was really hoping to keep up the momentum and be right up the top of the field after dropping his championship lead due to not being there last week. And it feels as though Scott Eastwood might have missed a trick here in terms of fighting his way through the carnage. But of course, you have to get a little bit lucky in carnage-filled races like this.
Yeah, he certainly do, and has made a mistake, of course, in this race from the lead at the chicane. And that cost him dear in race 2 for the AM Championship. Murphy now to the inside of Mark Gladwell, makes his way up into now 13th place overall and 11th place in class still. Jack Goring seems just about be holding on to this one. That gap now 3.5 seconds. Chris Pooley at the moment will be holding on to 3rd following Ben Cullen. So there is still going to be at least a few changes in the championship standings. Cullen's going to get closer to Goring, I believe. And then, of course, for Will Fawkes, he is still going to get close enough to Jack Goring to slice that gap down. And he's now got, just in front of him, David Wrench. This is for 6th place in class. I don't think he'll have enough time to catch up to Ethan Lee, but never say never with this number 31 machine. He may not be able to carry on the streak. He may not go undefeated for the remainder of the season, but it's still a very, very good drive. A champion's drive, you could say, Joseph, in the face of adversity, has still made his way up onto the back of 6th place in his own category.
Yeah, and well, he's going to keep having a go at the moment. Of course, Will Fawkes, fantastic drive from him, and what you say, the champion drive. Pretty much every drive Will Fawkes has put in, especially in race 1 here today, has been a champion's drive, and he looks to the outside line now, David Wrench. Can he make his way through, or is he going to just about break in time to avoid the back of the 32? He's going to just about again be squeezed out onto the curbing, which doesn't give him the opportunity to go for the move. The rain is still coming down here, so the curves are very difficult to go over. Later on the brakes is David Wrench, and Will Fawkes is not able to get the power down quickly enough. Is he going to be able to do it down the straight, though? Because, of course, the momentum that he can carry is going to be enough to try and keep him alongside. He won't pick up the slipstream, but he will remain alongside. The inside line once again for David Wrench, who brakes very late, too late, and that means that Will Fawkes is able to go alongside. I think Wrench might have a slowdown there. That means that Fawkes is able to get on through and confirm 6th place.
Yep, 6th place in class now, 3 minutes and 20 to go. And for the number 31 in 6th place, it is just now get this one to the end. He's got 3 seconds to Ethan Lee just in front of him. If he's able to catch this gap, that will be crazy. It would be insane, especially in such little amount of time. But on that last lap of 52.4 compared to a 52.7, so he was 3 tenths faster than Ethan Lee on that last tour. Ethan Lee this time around a 53.0. It's 4 tenths in the hands now of Will Fawkes, a 52.6. He's going to get close, but it's just not going to be close enough here for Will Fawkes, as Ethan Lee is actually still trying to apply some pressure onto Darren Berris for 4th place in the pro category himself. So if Will Fawkes does catch up with 1 lap to go, he could still even see himself into 4th, as that's a big moment for Lee over the curb, over the puddle, just about keeping it facing the right way.
Just about, and that's been I think the story of the day, if you can keep yourself vaguely in a straight line, you're going to be doing yourself a very, very good job indeed, and you're going to be able to hold yourself in position. And well, with 2 minutes 10 left in this race, that is all you need. You need to be able to take it home, because we don't want any late on dramas. Nobody wants any late on dramas, and it's just about keeping yourself consistent throughout the course of the last couple of laps. We've got 1 minute 53 to go here today, and Jack Goring, the leader, is going to be heading on to what will be his 22nd lap some point soon. I think we will have 3 or 4 laps in this race, as Joshua Lindsay, second place in the AM category, trying to go for moves. I think Craig Ledoux has this one wrapped up, but if we've got anything to go by for ourselves, Max, either at Spa or here, then we don't want to be doing too much talking about the 13. And, well, he'll be hoping it's the lucky number 13 right at the very end of this race. Joshua Lindsay under pressure from Matty Chambers, who goes to the inside and gets that position sealed nice and easily. Fair racing room given, and Lindsay drops a place.
Yeah, Lindsay certainly has dropped a place. And if we look back up at the front of the field, I'm just looking at the gaps. Will Fulks has absolutely climbed up to the back of Ethan Lee with 2 laps to go. He has an opportunity to try and get past Darren Berris as well. So if he's able to get past Lee on this lap, he has one opportunity, one chance at getting to 4th in class. He's going to be pushing hell for leather all the way to the very end, as Lee will defend that inside line. Fulks finds a gap big enough for his Porsche Cup car. The number 31 does make his way up into 5th place. It was a little bit argy-bargy. It was certainly rubbing his racing, but Fulks is up into 5th place in class. He can still somehow make this 4th place in class. When we saw him round and in the wall at the beginning of lap 1 at turn 1, you would have thought it's race over. It's done. Goring will get an insurmountable championship lead with 2 to go, but he has fought back, and in the face of adversity has certainly pulled this one back. The streak certainly might have ended here in Knockhill. It was going to be a behemoth opportunity, a behemoth challenge to try and be undefeated till the end of the season, especially with 4 races to go after this one. But for Jack Goring, you can call him Brock Lesnar, as he is going to defeat Will Fulks' streak here in Knockhill. For once, we see Fulks defeated, and it's Jack Goring who wins here in race 2 for Knockhill. The championship leader reigns supreme, and for Will Fulks, he has been able to get past Darren Berris and up into 4th place. It is going to be the number 31 who is backwards on the final lap. The streak may be over, but sure, that was a championship drive. Fulks takes 4th place at the line, and it is going to be Chris Pauley and Ben Cullen who round out the podium. But for Will Fulks, as Craig the Jew comes across the line, he finally picks up another race victory in the AM category. We certainly cannot be talking about him anymore, but it's finally lucky number 13 for Ledoux. He's been threatening all season long to have a performance like this, and it certainly finally did align and did deliver. But for Jack Goring, the championship leader, his championship lead will be sliced in half, with Fulks getting a 1st and a 4th, but the streak is well and truly over. And for Will Fulks now, he doesn't have the pressure of being undefeated anymore.
No, he certainly does not. He certainly doesn't. So he's not going to have to fight that anymore. And, well, try to keep up that 100%. What he can do is continue to fight for the championship, as there are your final results.
It's Jack Goring who takes the pro category race victory. It's Ben Cullen in 2nd, and Chris Pauley gets his 2nd podium of the day, the only driver to feature on both rosters here this evening. Will Fulks ends up in 4th. It's his 1st non-race victory of the season where he's attended. Then it's Darren Berris, Ethan Lee, David Wrench, Stevens, Barrett and Murphy who round out the top 10. The rest of the pro field will be as follows. It will then be Matt Chambers, Forrest, Plasto, Boland and Dan Cross, who we saw retire after that incident with Will Fulks. And he ends up with that pro 15th place. And in the Anfield, it's the Jew who is able to take another victory in the category, followed by Joshua Lindsay in 2nd, who's putting in a very consistent season as the number 17. And then it's Mark Gladwell, Scott Eastwood, Glenn Burry, Ben Weston and Adrian Warmington rounding out the 7 in the Anfield. A very, very interesting evening here, Joseph. Something that, of course, Jack Goring will be happy the streak is finally over, and for Will Fawkes, he'll be happy in his own sense, even though race 2 didn't go the way he would have wanted. He has still brought that championship gap down.
He certainly has. He really has. And that's exactly what Jack Goring would have been wanting to get out of that reverse grid race. As soon as he saw himself right at the top, and as soon as he saw Will Fawkes further down the order, he would have known that that was his opportunity. And he grabbed it with both hands and really did all that he could. I know that Will Fawkes had a great fight back through the field, but for the 108, I mean, you can't really have asked for a better race 2.
No, you certainly couldn't. Goring, he was on pole. It was kind of like we saw from Fawkes in race 1. He was on pole, championship rival gets taken out. You streak off at least a little bit down the road and see what you're able to do. And he did all that. He was flawless, was Jack Goring in race 2. He didn't make the mistakes he made in race 1. He learned from them. And as well with Will Fawkes as well, even though he faced that adversity, even though he faced those challenges, it didn't get to him. Even if he did have a little bit of car damage, it didn't get to him again. And he was just pushing more and more as each lap went by, and you saw the confidence that even after making some slight errors, even having to make his way through the field and past drivers, the confidence he just emitted with finding grip wherever he went where others couldn't. He's just a star driver. Fawkes is certainly one to look out for the championship with 2 more rounds to go. And it's going to be so interesting. This battle is going to go all the way to the wire.
It really, really is. And, well, hopefully we'll get the chance to speak to Fawkes later on in the evening. But I know there's at least one driver waiting for us in the interview room.
Yes, there certainly is indeed. As there's actually 3 waiting for us in the interview room. There's Paulie, Ledoux and Goring. So we'll speak with Chris Paulie first, because of course we did hear from him in race 1, but he is the only non-class winner out of those 3. So we'll bring in Chris now. Hello again, Chris. You got another podium, the only driver to do it this evening.
Yeah, the consistency's there, guys. I think if I'd got that one in Navarra as well, we'd be on about 5 in a row. So yeah, not bad result.
No, not bad at all. You certainly are on quite a hot streak at the moment on the podiums. Have you finally learnt the car? Is that what's happened? You finally got into grips? You found what you needed to do?
So something's clicked. I will also say I bought a set of new pedals about 3 weeks ago, and that seems to have correlated with the success. So you say you can't buy performance, but I think I have. So yeah, that seems to have helped a lot.
Well, seems to have found it, ladies and gentlemen. It's pay to win. The Porsche Cup cars, it's pay to win. That's the way you do things. But yeah, another great race from you there, Chris. Of course, starting a little bit further down the field. Just talk us through things. How did you find that?
Again, it was a bit of luck on lap 1. I'm sure you saw it in the stream, but Will went for a space that wasn't there. I think 4 cars have gone off in front of me. So yeah, again, lucky. Got up into 5th place, I think it was, and again, Chris Boland spun off in front of me, managed to get past Darren Berris, and yeah, just steadily worked my way up to 3rd place.
Yeah, it certainly was just a race of you just slowly chipping into gaps, just slowly working things through. And of course, it's a good moment as well for you in the championship. Of course, you were 4th place coming into this one. I believe with these performances, you might just be able to pit Ben Cullen, so you're into the top 3 now. Don't quote me on that, but I believe you're now up into 3rd place in the standings. And after the start to the season you had, it wasn't really too strong. Just how good has this second half been to you? Have you really enjoyed having this second half?
Yeah, like I said, something's clicked. I mean, 2 years ago we did this. I think I came 2nd in the championship through a similar kind of season, really. Started weak and then just managed to get some consistency. Last year was a lot more successful, and then again, I had a difficult start to the season, wasn't really clicking. The downside is I haven't got those drop scores, so every race I do now is pretty vital, because the first 2 rounds were pretty atrocious. So I'm just banking on getting good performances now, and the kind of remaining 2 weeks.
I mean, you are putting in those good performances, and you are on that hot streak of podiums at the moment. It's now 4 in a row, and it's just interesting to see as well how drivers can have, of course, even though you've already used your drop round, drivers could have a poor start to the season or just completely miss around, and these drop round keeps them into play, and you have that opportunity to even still go for the title. So if things still go your way here, Chris, if you carry on the momentum you're on, you could still even potentially be in a shout for the title here tonight, because of course you outperformed both Goring and Fulks in terms of positions, really, because of course both of them had a non-podium finish. So you're really in probably the best momentum out of that top four at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely an upwards trajectory, isn't it? I definitely not the quickest of those three, but as we've said, the consistency gets you a long way. I think realistically, if I can get, aim for P3 in the championship, that would be fantastic after the start of the season that I had.
Certainly would be. Indeed, and of course next time out we head to Alton Park for another sprint race. It's pretty much the UK's Monaco is Alton Park. Just how difficult is that going to be?
Yeah, it's a nightmare to overtake. I mean, I love the track, I love driving it for real. It's obviously just as fun in the sim, but it is a difficult track to overtake around. So yeah, I think the key there is going to be getting the practice in and getting a good quali, getting a good position.
Certainly is indeed, and there's going to be nothing from Joseph. So Chris, will leave you to things, and yeah, have a good rest of your evening, and congratulations on your double podium.
Thanks again, guys. Thanks for your help.
No worries. Thank you for joining us. Right, so we shall now move on to Craig Ledoux, because of course he was the winner. We'll leave the overall and pro winner, Jack Goring, till last. Hello, Craig. Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can indeed. First of all, congratulations on race 2 and that victory. Just talk us through the evening as a whole. How did you find these tricky conditions?
Yeah, so I mean, the first race was really, really tough, and quite frankly, trying to get through the first couple of corners just didn't work out for me. And then after that, it was kind of damage limitation. I'm actually really pleased I managed to finish third in the amateur class in that one, because I kind of thought it was all over. But achievable, if you see what I mean. That second race, the conditions were nowhere near as bad. And I was really pleased. My game plan from the very beginning was just to get through corner 1, get through corner 2, and then worry about the rest of the race after that and see how it went.
Yeah, and it treated you rather nicely, other than a few moments off track. Me and Joseph have kind of made a pact now to not talk about you during the race, because there was a moment where Will Fulks was behind you, where we mentioned your pace and how well you were doing, and then you went off the road. It seems like whenever we speak well of you, we curse you. So me and Joseph are no longer going to be really commenting on your performances to stop that bad luck from happening.
Well, that's super kind of you, but quite frankly, I fall off the track so often that if you just accidentally thought about me, I would probably fall off the track. So, but I appreciate the thought anyway.
Yeah, of course. That race too was still a very good race from you, even with a couple of the off-track excursions. But that don't matter. You still got the victory done and dusted. Just how nice was it to be able to battle with some of those front runners in the pro category? Just how nice was that to be able to keep up with them as well and actually have some proper battles?
Oh, it's great. It's great fun being up at the front. But I have to admit that. When I realised that I was at the front of the amateur category anyway, and I think 4 drivers were battling sort of door to door in front of me, and I just didn't want to risk it. Risk trying to make that overtake. So a part of me was just monitoring the time to the amateur behind me. I think it was Lindsay at the time, and monitoring the time to him. And as long as he wasn't gaining on me, I was quite happy, actually, to be honest, just to sit as a spectator and watch those 4 cars fight it out.
You got the popcorn out, is what you're saying. You had a sneaky bag of popcorn in the car. But yeah,
I wouldn't say I was that relaxed, but yeah, just not too far from the truth.
Oh, well, it was still a very, very good drive. And of course, before I hand you over to Joseph, we head to Alton Park next week. Of course, a very challenging circuit when it comes to being so narrow. How are you around Alton? Are you confident around there, or is it going to be a bit of a bogey track?
I've done quite a bit of Mazdas around Alton Park. My son and I enjoy doing some of the endurance races on iRacing in Mazdas, so I'm comfortable with the track. Never driven it in the 992 Cup though. So happy that I know which way I'm turning, left or right for the next corner. Not necessarily so happy with the handling of the car. So we'll see how it goes. But I do enjoy Alton Park, especially Britain's. That's a really tough but super satisfying corner when you get it right.
Yeah, it certainly is indeed. But that's going to be all from me, Craig, and Joseph. Do you have any questions for Craig here this evening?
Well, I was going to just riff off of the back of the Mazda question and just ask, roughly, because I've done Alton Park and the Porsches before, but roughly what would you say are the differences between the Mazdas and the Porsches on average?
So I was just having a conversation about this with some of the other races, actually. I really like driving the Porsche, and this is going to sound mental, but I really like driving the Porsche in the wet. Because it reminds me a lot of the Mazda MX-5 in the dry. So as soon as that back end steps out, just a little bit of control with the throttle will bring the back end back under control. So you can rotate the car and slide it a little bit, dab a tiny little bit of throttle, and it controls it, which is pretty much how I drive the Mazda. Obviously, that's me saying the Porsche in the wet versus the Mazda in the dry. Outside of that, the Mazda is so easy to turn. It just kind of, the back end wants to overtake you the whole time, whereas the Porsche, you know, you're really having to trail brake into every single corner just to keep the weight on the front nose to get some grip on the front, and then you have to wait before you can get the power back down, otherwise you'll understeer off. So the two cars, you know, are very different, especially at corner entry, I would suggest.
Yeah, and well, you'll find that at Alton Park is all I'll say. I won't give you too much in the
I
way
look forward to it.
in the way of help. But thank you for joining us, Craig, and well, congratulations on your class podium.
Thanks very much. Have a great evening.
You to Craig, and finally, Joseph, we shall speak to the overall race winner of race 2, Jack Goring, and I believe after this evening still championship leader in the pro category. Hello, Jack. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Yep.
Well, first of all, congratulations on the race 2 victory, but it was really an evening of two different tales. Race 1 was a bit disappointing. Race 2 rather pleasing. Just how difficult was it out there this evening?
Yeah, it was a mixed emotion evening, I must say. Yeah, Heat 1 went terribly. Well, I say terribly, but then it got me into a position where I got lucky for the spin of the wheel. So, yeah, it was a hard first race to make an easy second race.
Yeah, that first race was really unravelled at turn 1. Just what was your thoughts on things in that opening lap incident? Was it just 2 cars into 1 don't go, or was it just a little bit aggressive from the drivers behind?
I've not watched it back properly without being in the heat of the moment, but I felt like, obviously from my single screen perspective, I felt like I left enough room, looking at the position of wheel on the inside. So I thought I'd left enough room, but got tagged in the first corner, and that gave me a meatball. So yeah, unfortunately that dropped me back to about 21st or something. So really ruined the race from that point. Got up to about, I think it was 5th or 6th, and yeah, tried pushing on, and then just got tagged around, dropping me back down to 14th, and then it was just all out for the last couple of laps to try and get myself back up as high as possible to give me the best chance for that wheel spin.
Certainly did give you a great chance, but of course race 2 fared a lot better. Was the game plan just get through turn 1, build that gap as much as possible, and just make sure you have a little bit of breathing room to the cars behind this time compared to how race 1 went?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, lined up on pole. Didn't get the greatest launch, but got a good second phase of the launch. So managed to hold the inside for turn 1 and then just literally chuck it over the curb and clear off for lap 1 was the game plan. And then I saw the gap was about like 1.5 seconds after the first lap, and I was like, right, let's just work on building the gap. Kept pulling it, and then just keep it on the black stuff.
You did just that, and of course I believe you still hold the championship lead, but Will has certainly brought it down with 2 to go. Just what are you feeling heading into these final 2 rounds when it comes to that championship battle? Do you still feel like it's in your hands, or do you think that Will's just outright pace is going to maybe snatch it away?
Personally looking at it, I think with the drop rounds, I think Will's clear. I think I wrote the championship off probably from about round 6. At Navarro, just went, look, I know he's obviously dropped his 2 rounds already with no score, but he's flying. I mean, the only reason why he didn't win this one really was because of incidents at turn 1, is what I heard. So he should have been up the front with me in that second race, but I don't think that I'll be hanging on to that one.
Well, we certainly shall see. It's still going to be all the way down to the wire though, so you still may have an opportunity. You never know what could happen in these next 2 weeks. But talking about next week, we head to Alton Park for the 9th round of the season. Just what are your feelings at Alton? Are you confident around the circuit, or is it going to be a circuit where you're just not going to be up to the same pace as previous rounds?
I think with Alton is, as long as you get the practice in and get your eye in for the double chicane on the back straight, I think the rest of the track is quite flowy. It's quite good. I'm not the biggest fan of the 2 chicanes, if I'm honest. I prefer at the end of the straight having that fast right hand sweep up the hill, but I think with the 2 chicanes, if you get your eye in, you should be somewhere decent on pace.
Certainly should. A very tricky track when it comes to overtaking as well, so could certainly help if you start on the front row once again. But Jack, that is going to be all from us here in the comms box, so enjoy the rest of your evening, and congratulations on race 2.
Perfect, thank you, cheers guys.
No worries. Thank you for joining us. So Joseph, that is the interviews over and out. There's one more thing that still needs to be decided though, and that is driver of the day. Who do you believe is the driver of the day here, Joseph?
I mean, obviously we've had to have a lot of conversations with about specifically Will Fulks, with the way that with of course the way that he drove back in race 2, and of course the dominance that he showed in race 1. But it's one of those things that kind of we come to expect that. So I want to have a look more at those who we don't quite expect that same level of performance from, or the same level of performance they've given us from. And so my eyes turn to the one person who sat on the podium twice. That would be, for me, Chris Pauly.
Yep, I'm very much in agreement there. That was very much Chris Pauly's driver of the day. He was so consistent throughout. Yes, Will did have that incident at lap 1, and he was able to make his way back through, but still, Chris started in, I believe it was 7th place on race 2, was able to make his way through the carnage and slowly picked his way up into that top 3 places, and he still had some very good pace as well at the end. So yeah, I also think Chris Pauly should be driver of the day. So that is the driver of the day vote over and done with. It will be Chris Pauly who succeeds on that front. But finally, we are about to head off. Quickly to remind you of your final 2 rounds, it is Alton Park next week, and then we make a trip to one of my personal favourite circuits, Brands Hatch, for the finale. That will be round 10. It's 2 more sprint weekends coming up. Is there any final words from you though, Joseph, before we head to Alton Park?
Just thank you for having me again on the AFVRC broadcast. It's been good fun watching them sling it around Knockhill in the wet. Here's to more wet races.
Yes, certainly. If we get one at Brands, that will certainly be chaos. Take that off the BTCC that happened a few weeks ago. And I may have done a commentator's curse there as well. But yeah, that is going to be all, ladies and gentlemen. So join us next week at 8 PM UK time, 9 PM European time for what shall be a frantic penultimate round of the season as we head to the UK's Monaco. We head to Oulton Park. Can Fulks bounce back and take the championship lead away from Jack Goring? Or will Jack be able to extend it or even just hold on? All will be revealed next week. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Stay safe, stay well, and bye-bye.